Hello, I'm JW. What we have here is another timer, and this one is new in the box. But of course it's not really new because it's been around for about 40 years or so, but of course it's never actually been taken out or used. And it's another one of these AMF ones, so similar to the one I had a look in the other video, but this has a fairly important difference. So let's have a look at that. So here's the thing, I'll say new in the box, so never actually been used, but of course it's been around for several decades while it's been just sitting in a storage shack or somewhere. So let's have a look inside. Now this is considerably smaller physically than the other one, and if you haven't seen the other video then of course link is in the usual place. And same sort of design though, with the press tab on the side to open, and then inside I've got the dial of course there on the side here, and terminals underneath, and the instructions or wiring on the left side. So what we've got here is a model 4100521, and as you can see from the wiring diagram here, it's got the usual power obviously coming in there, one of which powers the actual motor, and then it's got two outputs here. You've got one for bright lights and the other for dim lights, and as I say here, fairly substantial rating. Again, that's 25 amps on the bright circuit and 7 on the dim circuit, and of course the motor is say rated sort of around 240 volts, 50 hertz. Again, this is a UK or certainly a European model. And if you have a look at the bottom here, there's no printing date here, but it's got revision 8482, so presumably that's 1982, and made and printed in the USA. And so another one of these AMF efforts, which is actually Paragon Electric company, but of course that was owned by AMF at the time. And again, there's another division here in Canada if you happen to live there. And the deal with these is that these are designed for poultry sheds, and it does actually say that on the outer box. And the idea is that the lights are switched on, basically the bright ones will be your sort of normal lighting, and then when you get to the end of the period, rather than just switching off into total darkness, it switches down onto the dim light setting, and then after a short time goes off, so sort of simulating sunset if you were. And the clock dial, it's just got the 4 fixings around the edge there, as you can see. Again, it's just marked day and night, and this is a 24-hour timer, so it's 1 revolution per day. And again, at the bottom here, just got the warnings about live terminals and such like underneath. So I'll just remove the screw and have a look at the terminals. And again, this is a sort of a cardboardy type material, just fixed with that single central screw there. And the screw is actually a metal self-tapping thing, which just gouges directly into the plastic. So that's not a particularly good design, as of course doing that a few times is going to just wear the hole out. So there's no way of fixing this insulating material back in place. And inside there I've got 3 terminals, and say a 4th one at the top there, and that actually corresponds to the 4 in the section over there. And to take these out, press this piece here, and the entire thing just lifts away, leaving your empty case. The only thing in there is the earth terminal at the bottom. So here's the actual mechanism, and I've got a manual switch here, so you can of course turn them on and off just manually if you wanted to. And in terms of the dial, so this is a 24-hour dial, so it's 1 revolution per day, so actually nighttime and daytime on the other half. And I've got 4 of these little tappets here. The on ones are the bright coloured ones, and the dark ones are the off ones. So as it rotates, of course, then it will turn on at the appropriate point, and of course off at the point you set later on. And these are easily adjustable. Just undo the little nut at the top, and then the entire thing just slides to the time that you wanted. And you can actually remove these completely if you take out the screws. And let's do the same with that black one. So there they are. They're substantially similar, although of course the only difference being is this peg on the side. So the dark ones have the peg in a different position to the light one, so it's just a question of one pushes it one direction and the other in the opposite. So fairly straightforward design. So here's the motor, and again made in USA, and it's 3 watts, so pretty low powered thing. This has 2/8 to 240 volts, 50 hertz with the frequency, and the speed is 1/60th of a revolution per minute, so absolutely ridiculously slow, but that's just a little plastic window that just to confirm the thing is operating. And in terms of the terminals here, these yellow wires just go to the motor, so that's wired permanently across the main supply. So your neutral terminal is over here, and then your incoming supply is this one, which again goes to the motor there, and also forms this contact in the centre. And then your outgoing terminals are this one, and this one. So you've got your dim and bright. And then the contact here just moves between either the dim and the bright, depending on the position of the timer wheel. So here we've got the terminals, and this would be your main circuit here, or the sort of bright ones, and then your dim ones are over here, with the incoming supply in that centre piece. And at the moment it's in the off position. You can see it's not connected to either this side or that side, so of course all the lights are off. Now we're coming at an on period, so this should just switch on the main lighting. So just rotate there, and you see it snaps over to this side. So now these two are connected, so your actual main lighting is now switched on. And of course that will remain that way until the thing gets round to the appropriate time. And then the off sequence is just coming up to this point here. And the first thing you'll do, it will click over to the opposite side. So we've turned off the main lights, now you've energised what's called the dim lights, which obviously by their name are considerably dimmer than the main ones. That remains there just for a few minutes, and then as we pass the off period completely, it'll just snap across and again just disconnect both. So now the lights are completely off. And again, only come around to your next on period, and it goes on with the full brightness. And then the off period will snap across to the dim position, and shortly after that we'll just click into the off position where it remains until the next on period. Now, so this is a 24-hour timer, and it's got the two on and off sections, because as it states on this little label here, which was presumably intended to stick in there, it's 13 to 14 hours of lighted daytime is necessary for maximum results. So presumably if you're rearing poultry, then that's what you would actually need. And of course during the year the amount of daylight varies considerably, so the idea with this is you'd have a predefined hour in the morning when it would switch on, and then of course after a while it's going to be light anyhow, so your daylight's going to come in your windows and whatever, so you'd switch off to save electricity. And again at the end of the day, when it starts to get dark, you presumably would want to extend the illuminated period further, so again you'd set that to come on at whatever period, and of course then switch off at the actual night time that you've selected. And as we saw there, the operation is basically it will switch on at the full brightness, but on the off cycle you've got your main lights which then switch off, and then you get your dim circuit will switch on, and then shortly after that it turns off completely. And it does suggest here the types of power lighting you should use, and as you see here, the bright circuit, it's suggesting 60 watt lights at 10-foot intervals, and then the dim ones as I'll say a separate circuit, and it's one 15 watt bulb should be installed for every 2 of your 60 watt, so it's about 10% of the total power. Of course 2 would be 120 and you've got a 15 watt, so very much dimmer. And then we've got this bit about the time that you should set the things and for best results. Now this thing is actually a label which literally had some adhesive on the back, but as you can see it's totally just turned to dust, so there's no way that's going to stick in, but presumably it was intended, this was your installation instructions. This will be probably either stuck over the top or somewhere, as it's going to be quite likely going to have to adjust the times throughout the year, as you don't want your lights left on obviously all day, but on the other hand you want them to be on for long enough so that it's actually light when they switch off, and of course they're switching on again before it gets completely dark. This insulator is essentially a piece of cardboard, certainly not ideal in terms of covering up these very large and obviously live terminals, and bearing in mind one of these is going to be live at all times, the other two of course being switched and your neutral at the bottom, but nevertheless at the time that was presumably acceptable, just having that bit of cardboard stuck over the top and a single screw fixing it down in the centre. And so bearing in mind this would have to be probably opened fairly often to obviously set the time and adjust the actual timing period, so not what you call ideal. So it's another AMF timer, and that one designed for a very specific purpose, so it's used in a poultry shed, and of course turn the lights on and off as required. And again it's probably sort of 30 odd years plus old, as that label was revised in 1982, so that puts it to 33 years old at least. And of course it's totally obsolete these days, because even if you have a poultry shed, you're not going to be using some antiquated piece of stuff like that. It's going to be some more up-to-date thing, probably electronic with all kinds of other features built in, but of course at the time that was probably fine. And the other problem of course with that is the amount of energy it would actually use for the lighting, as it's suggesting whole rows of 60 watt incandescent lamps, and spacing those every 10 feet or so. As you have a poultry shed over a couple of 100 feet in length, That's an awful lot of power going on, and of course these days seems horrendously wasteful. But of course 30 odd years ago that's all you could use, because that's how all lights were. The advent of LEDs and those combat fluorescent jobs, of course simply it didn't exist. So until next time, thanks for watching.